Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Is it horror or science fiction? I'm not talking about the dozens of movie and television versions, which almost all lean hard into horror, or the cartoonish, comedic, or pop culture versions either. Drop your answer in the comments. I didn't read Frankenstein until my late 40s. Yeah, I waited that long. Here's why. When I was a kid, I stayed up late watching the local Friday night horror feature on TV. That was my introduction to classics like The Blob, The Fly, and Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And of course, Universal Pictures' black and white versions of Frankenstein. You know the one: the flat head, neck bolts, bad haircut, and Boris Karloff's platform boots. Even 8-year-old me thought it was a little hokey, but it was definitely scary. And those versions, and nearly every adaptation after, were sold as pure horror. Well, except the comedic Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein and Mel Brooks' Young Frankenstein parody versions, which, by the way, are still my favorites. You know how sometimes seeing the movie makes you want to read the book? Frankenstein movies had the exact opposite effect on me. Then one day in my late 40s, at the checkout line of my local library, I grabbed a list of the top 100 horror books of all time. I scanned the list and saw I'd read many, most of the top 20, and all of the top 10 except one. And you guessed it, it was Frankenstein. So onto my reading list it went. When I finally checked out the battered old library copy, I started reading it and found I couldn't put it down. I immediately came to two conclusions. First, Shelley's novel is an absolute masterpiece. Second, Frankenstein, to my surprise, was not horror. It is freaking science fiction. Sure, science fiction often contains elements of horror, but Frankenstein created a classic sci-fi motif. Brilliant scientific minds, obsessed by discovery, blinded by hubris, crossing ethical boundaries, creating something they can't control, then refusing responsibility. And that arrogance, the belief they could play God without consequence, and ultimately losing everything. And Shelley not only possibly created the first science fiction novel, but also the mad scientist trope as well. After my first reading of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, I learned many scholars consider it the first science fiction novel ever written, and many consider it also one of the greatest ever written. That said, I still understand why people consider it horror. So I'll ask you again, from your reading of Frankenstein or the modern day Prometheus, is it horror or science fiction? Or both? Please let us know what you think in the comments.